Hello, this is Kristen Terronez, and this is my professional teaching portfolio for the school years 2015-2016. Domain 1, Planning and Preparation. Knowledge of content and pedagogy. I participate in a lot of the Annenberg Learner series for teaching foreign languages. These are self-guided, but they do have worksheets that you work through. They're wonderful online resources. Knowledge of students. I give my students a learning style quiz to get to know their learning style. This is very helpful, and that way I can adjust how I teach, and I can also adjust the assessments. Selecting instructional goals. In my lesson plans, I always include the relationship to standards. That way I'm sure that the standards are the pushing force behind how I am teaching. I also create pacing calendars at the beginning of the year. I revisit these every month and I make adjustments, and that way I can make sure that I am staying on pace but also covering the material that the students need. The knowledge of resources. I have a wonderful online component that has modified levels for students. This is a wonderful resource that a lot of teachers don't utilize. I provide my students with a lot of opportunities to work on this in class, at lunchtime, and also I encourage them to do it at home through offering them bonus pesos. My collaboration with peers. I gave an alternate in-service on communication, and this was a springboard for subsequent talks between my colleagues and I. Here is some of the learning goals that we had during the workshop. Designing coherent instruction. This is a curriculum map that I developed with a timeline. Again, this is similar to my pacing calendars. It helps me stay focused and give myself a timeline as to what is a reasonable amount of material to cover. I give meaningful student projects that are focused around things that are interesting to them. Of course, in middle school, what's more interesting than themselves? So this particular project was one that they had to do about themselves. And I really like interactive and discovery learning, and this does well in groups. This is a cultural web quest that the kids worked on. Assessing student learning. I have my students keep all of their assessments together in a portfolio, and I do ask them to write reflections so that way they can see where they're at, what material we've covered, what they felt was their strong point, and what they could do to do better in the future. I also provide assessments with rubrics. This is very important in world language because we want to see what the students can do with the language. So we do speaking and writing with these rubrics, and I'm able to give immediate feedback on the speaking portions of those as the kids sit here with me at my desk, and we do those together. Classroom environment, domain 2. Creating an environment of respect and rapport. I do lunchtime tutoring, and we also call this hangout time. So if there are no student concerns at the time, some of the kids will come and they will spend time in here, and it's sort of a safe place for them to come, and it really allows me to get to know the kids outside of the classroom setting. Establishing a culture for learning. I like to group my students in a way that promotes scaffolding and peer interaction, so I do put them in groups. When creating the groups, I like to put at least one student in each group that is stronger and seems to grasp the material a little bit better. Then I also promote an environment where they're a team, so this way the stronger students will help the struggling students, so that way their team does better as a group. I like to display the student work around my room. It provides an environment that the students know that what they do is meaningful to me. Again, I make these heterogeneous teams. This shows where I have the rankings. So each quiz or assessment that we take, we have rankings by group, and then in the big tests, we have rankings by class. And this way it encourages them to help each other out, and they win little prizes. I do have lunch tutoring. This is drop-in for the most part. Kids can come at any time. And I also do encourage homework club, which I conduct right in my room. For students who might have missed some work, I call them out and they come down to my room during lunch to work on it. Managing classroom procedures. The student seating arrangement minimizes interruptions because we do a lot of group activities, and that way there is not a whole lot of transition time because they're already sitting with the students that they're going to communicate with. I also have student absent folders. Since the kids do work in groups, I make them responsible for each other in that group. So if someone in the group is absent, they have absent student forms at the back of the room. They fill those out as we're going through the class period, staple any handouts on there, and then they put them in the makeup work folder. And then I just go around and verify that they did do that. That way, when the students return, there's very minimal disruptions because they don't have to ask me what we did. They just go back to the folder and get it out, and then if they have any questions, they can always ask me then. Managing student behavior. I'm fortunate that I do not have many issues with student behavior. I do have the classroom guidelines posted in the class with the consequences and my expectations as well. Organizing the physical space. As you can see, the furniture arrangement allows for students to communicate easily with one another while still having a clear view of the smartboard. I do use technology quite a bit in my classroom. I'm fortunate that my textbook has an online component, so therefore the students can see everything on the board, which provides them with visual cues, and I give them the verbal cues. Domain 3, Instruction. Communicating with students. I make sure to give very clear expectations for assessments. This is an example of a review sheet that I would give the students. As you can see, it has very specifically the exact directions from the assessment, so there is no guessing what will be on it. And I do provide smartboard visuals for the students as well. Using questioning and discussion techniques, this is something I would hope that you would be able to witness during one of the walkthroughs, but I do make sure that I give students sufficient time between questioning and having them answer. I also try to probe students for a more in-depth conversation in an effort to get them thinking more critically. Engaging students in learning. Here's an example of one of the unit objective sheets that I give at the beginning of the units, and then we revisit at the beginning of each lesson, which the units are made up of. This gives them an idea of what the focus question is, the big idea, and what they should be able to do. And then at the end, they can decide by checking them off if they feel confident in that or not before moving on to the assessment. I like to provide a lot of interactive activities where students are the center of the learning through these activities. This is an example of a school-wide treasure hunt that they did where they had to read the clues in Spanish and find different items throughout the school. I also like to provide fun activities where there's a lot of peer interaction. This is something where they made the little counters that they make oftentimes in elementary school, but it was to practice basic numbers and colors in Spanish. Using assessment and instruction. We do have common assessments as a department. These are 5 per lesson, 10 per unit. This just gives you an example of what one looks like. And performance assessments, we provide rubrics with comments, and I give verbal feedback. This way it's very one-on-one and students know immediately how they did and how they can improve. Demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness. Here's an example through my lesson plans with modifications for students with IEPs. Of course, also there are modifications for gifted students where I do provide additional opportunities for work for them. Domain 4, Professional Responsibilities. Reflecting on teaching. I'm very big into my pacing calendars, but then I also always make a list to say how many days each lesson took me, and then I reflect back throughout the years. I often would find myself at the end of the year running out of time, so this is one way that helps keep me focused. Maintaining accurate records. I keep my gradebook updated and maintained. Homework I get in the day of normally, and of course quizzes are within a day, and tests take a couple days as they are longer and there is writing on them. But I like to make sure that students have that available to them immediately, since more of them are utilizing the gradebook. Communicating with families. I like to provide updates on students who are not performing well in class. I tend to do this a lot via email, as I find that it gives me a record, but it also allows me to communicate quicker with people, so we're not playing phone tag. But I do also call occasionally as well. And I like to provide not only your child could be doing better, but also the positive parent contact. It's very important that they understand that when their kids are doing well. Participating in a professional community. I co-presented a world language workshop for my department. Growing and developing professionally. I am currently attended a world language conference the other day at the University of Scranton. This is very important for me because it allows me to connect with other people who are like-minded, and it also provides me the opportunity to continue my education. Showing professionalism. Although I would never expect every teacher to provide lunch tutoring, as it is our time off, I do feel that this is a time for me to really connect with the students and provide them an opportunity to attend tutoring without missing any activities after school. Or some students might work, or they might have to take care of a younger sibling. So this gives them that opportunity to come, and I can help them out during that time. Thank you very much for looking at my professional teaching portfolio.